Hey, there we go. Am I muted? There we go. Some issues. Hey, Gator Dave. Hey, Adrian, I don't know if you're still there. Well, where is the... It's weird. I have such problems going on here. Let's see if this will work. I don't know that we're actually on YouTube. I'm trying to do that. That's part of the issue, but the real big issue today was we lost, I was signed in on our machine over here, and of course it's not working, and Scott's not around, which is good for him. Do this one more time. Wow. It's all terrible. But, and I can hear myself, which is really great. There we go. Well, hopefully it'll work, sort of. Let me know if there's lots of glitches and stuff, because I am seeing errors and I have no idea what it is. So this is my first time streaming on YouTube as well. We'll see how that is. I can hear... Derek had told me a way to get this to not do the audio, and I thought I just did it, but it's still there. But I'm going to paint today. Oops, I knocked down poor Falcon. I did paint this weekend, and cool. Okay, well, I hope you can hear me. Let's see here. I have a bunch of, we're preparing to film this weekend, and it's a bunch of stuff. And I may do the mini from the other flamecraft mini that I didn't do yet. Cool, Michael, let me know if you see anything. We're live on, hey, thanks, Tara. I'm glad you love our channel. Yay, art. Yeah, so I'm gonna paint these minis. I've got a big pile of them still, and of course, I believe just yesterday, the Marvel United Metaverse ones went, Kickstarter just went live. And of course, I backed it already. I mean, it's $100 to get in, and you get all the stretch goals and stuff like that. But of course, I want everything. I want everything on the last one. Hey, good, audio's great. Thanks so much, BP Wilding. So hopefully the music's not too loud. It sounds kind of loud in my ears, but that doesn't mean anything. So nothing is logged in. Let me see if I can find it here. It seems like it's a little loud. There we go. Oops, not too loud. That's what I get for using... Wow, it's going up a lot. I don't have a mouse on this computer. I really should. But it's USB-C, and I don't have any USB-C mice, so I need to get one. Or an adapter, which I do have some adapters. So let's cut to the table here, and so you can see what's going on. Since it's new to a lot of folks, I'll show a bit of what I've been painting lately. Right now, tonight is going to be Marvel United. I have about 60 minis that I've painted so far. I'll show a couple of completed ones. Here's one. Actually, I just finished this one. So it was officially done for the longest time, but I realized I hadn't painted his eyes. So I went in and painted that. And they look good. And I did his teeth. I like doing these because the size of the models are quite large, so it's a little bit more fun to do things like the eyes, because I'm a big fan of doing the GW stuff. But like, if you notice, I didn't paint his eyes. Oops, he's not in the frame. It's very tiny, right? The GW stuff is awfully small. There are some larger stuff that I have in the queue here that I want to paint. These are some orcs from Marvel, not Marvel, wow, I'm really out of it. Warhammer Underworlds. And I have them primed mostly. I think I want to go back and add a little bit more highlights since I painted those. I painted those those are like some early Zenithal highlighting that I did. So yeah, that's Magneto. This is from the, wow, this is interesting. So, oh, I know what the deal is. I have the X-Men minis that I've painted out, but I have the Marvel United, the first set still in the box. So I think we took that down to Shu and Christina's to play the game. And we did play. We saw a bunch of people and everybody was excited about the minis. And I hope some people, I was trying to get James Hudson, he was like talking about potentially painting his minis, and I'm like, these are not hard. I do streams, you should watch them. Let me switch to some actual glasses. I can see, I can read no problem, but like getting these minis in my face is not as easy as it used to be. I also painted a bunch of stuff for Warhammer Underworlds. There's a box, or excuse me, Warhammer Quest. There's a box, I actually have some minis that are similar to this. These are for Warhammer Quest Lost Relics. Games Workshop sent me the game, plus a couple of others they want us to look at. But this is the one I wanted to do because I've always wanted to do Warhammer Quest. And so I did the 5 minis that are in it. This one is actually one I painted previously. I think I got it in a box set. Actually, not a box set. There was like a How to Paint Warhammer or something like that, fantasy, or Warhammer Age of Sigmar. And so I have the one that came in the box, but I was like, well, I want to paint other things. He's out of focus. But you'll notice his hand is not broken. I actually broke this finger painting it, and now he's giving a rude gesture. But I had made a finger that I molded and cut out of plastic and glued. It was great, and then I broke it again. It's such a little kind of a tender point there, so you have to be careful. I like painting minis. I really like painting minis. I'm pretty good. I can do some things. I mean, if I'm patient, I can do really detailed miniatures. Let me show you one. I don't know where I put him. I've actually been trying to clean things up here. Oh wait, I need to show you the little bird too. These two weren't finished. But yeah, we want to do them on the show with the painted minis. But yeah, the bird turned out great. All that stuff was fun. And then what I'm doing is a simplified version of painting that I've been reading about for years, and I had been doing for a while now, but Adam Smasher, Tabletop Minions, did a live stream for us for B2G during our conline stuff that we did in 2020 when there were no conventions. And he was we bought him a copy of Marvel United, and he painted Hulk and one other character, maybe Red Skull. I don't think he did Red Skull though. But I was very excited about his method and how great they looked. And I thought, I know I can paint that relatively easily. And so I started to do that in his method, which I'll explain in a moment. This is a standard paint job that I've done before, where it was, spending the time. Took me probably a week at least, and I, did everything, did the gems, all the crazy stuff. And this is kind of probably in the style of heavy metal, they call it. And it's not as good as their work, of course, but it's pretty decent. But when I started on Marvel United, I decided to actually, you've never painted a mini, and I've considered, well, you should attempt Marvel United. I'll explain to you here, Benjamin. So, what I'm doing what they call a Zenithal highlight. And what you do is you paint, obviously this is just a red plastic mini. You paint the entire thing black as you can get it. I mean, if you look carefully, you can see some red in here that I didn't get, because it's hard, to do it. But I don't worry about it too much. You can also just touch it up after the fact. Then, you can also just paint it black. You do not, I airbrush them. I have a very inexpensive airbrush here that was like $40 or something like that. That's good. It's not, I have lots of airbrushes, but I bought this one recently to see, I want to see some options out there for people. There's actually something I should have bought instead of this one even. There is ones now that actually have a little compressor on the bottom. So they're like $80 for this rechargeable compressor and the airbrush. I think I saw Micromark, which is a train, people that are into trains usually buy a lot of their stuff. They have a thing for $109, which is basically that same airbrush plus the little compressor. I believe you can get them for cheaper on Amazon. But what you can do is you paint it black, then what I do is I do a gray at a 45-degree angle with the airbrush, and then I do white directly from above. All that sounds kind of complicated. It really isn't. The other choices you can have that are a lot cheaper is you can paint it all black, and you could do that with a paintbrush if you want. I'm going to go too cheapest. So this is the second level. You can paint the whole thing with black with a rattle can, spray can, or you can just paint it by hand. And then you use a white spray can and you basically spray it from above and maybe a tiny bit to give you some highlighting on the sides. It's not going to be as subtle as this is, but it'll be pretty good. And then the other one that's even a little more subtle, you know, a little bit, not subtle, but a little bit more kind of contrasty, a little bit more comic-y, is you paint entirely black and then you dry brush it, the highlights on. And you use this brush right here, well, not this brush, but one like this. This is a makeup brush that Terry Latorco had been recommending for years. And you know, this is a $5 brush at most on Amazon. And it's just a makeup brush. This one's called the e.l.f. Ultimate Blending. You put a tiny bit of white on the tip here, and then you basically wipe it on a towel or a napkin in the same direction till there's almost no paint. I mean, literally, it looks dry. They call it dry brushing for a reason. You can see a little bit of residue from paint from me doing it over times. And then when you highlight it, you just pull it down from the top. And what you're doing is you're just adding, zenithal means like the zenith where the sun is at, so it's pointing down on you. And you just do this until you get the highlights that you want. And then that is your undercoat. And then what I do is I'm using a lot of contrast paints. Contrast paints are a type of paint from Citadel. They're not inexpensive, but I will say now, I have painted so many minis. I'm into the 60s on these Marvel United, and I have never bought any colors again except for this color here. Well, two colors, let me say. This color here, which is Iondine Yellow, and Basilicanum Gray. This one I actually mostly used up, but what happened is I was painting on a Discord with some friends, and I knocked the bottle down, and I cleaned up the mess, and thankfully the paint didn't messed up. But I was able to finish using it. The other one that I spilled was this one. So you see here there's a lot of pigment at the bottom. You need to really shake them a lot. I use a vortex mixer that I've had for ages. You need to mix it till that's gone. You can see it's starting to go away. So you have to shake it with your arm, but what it does is it's like a single coat paint that settles into the crevices. You can see here on this hair on MODOK what I'm talking about. And it gives it the impression of lighting and shading. So there, it's getting lighter. You want this to completely mix in. Well, the one that I spilled, somehow a bunch of that pigment fell out, you know, got spilled out, which it shouldn't have because it should have been mixed well, but maybe it wasn't, I don't recall. But I had to buy that one again because it lost basically its contrast qualities. Contrast paints will, when you paint them on, they have like mixed up pigments, and they will settle into the cracks and give you details. So this is MODOK that I'm working on right now. And I did that type of highlighting. I did go a little bit brighter because I tend to go a little bit darker, like I showed you. Let's see here. I did Doctor Strange. He turned out pretty good. Let me see. Oh, here he is. I actually have multiple copies of Doctor Strange now, but I'm not going to paint him again. But anyway, you know, he's a little dark. His skin's a little, you know, it looks like he's, but you know, it's great. I actually do not mind this at all, but I wanted these to be a little bit brighter and see how they turned out. It's a little comic-y. He's not done yet, but I mean, it is a comic character, right? And so you just apply the paint on as one coat. And I tend to do a little bit of more buildup of that. I use what they call contrast medium on these paints, and it thins the paint out, but it still has the colors. So then I build it up. But as you can see, it settles in, it gives you some of the shading. And I mean, you know, I did this while it was all kind of wet, so that I added the color and then blended the orange to give it his thruster here. And then for like this gem here, this was just, I put the one color on a lighter version of this. Actually, I think I might have put a thinned out orange first, then the red, or that's not a gem, whatever the heck it is, sensor or whatever. And then I put the red on it to give it that, you know, like a reflection. But this was pretty simple. I spent a little bit more time because there's a lot of little lines, so it was a little hard to do. But I've also been painting flamecraft miniatures for, we're going to do them on GameNight. These are the same process. It's Zenithal highlighted, and then you just put this paint over it. Now I said this is Games Workshop or Citadel contrast paint. I do not know what I just did with that other bottle of it. That's a brown too. Did I put it away? I guess I did put it away. Wow, I'm being responsible. They are around $8. That's not really that terribly bad. I was saying they do last a long time, especially because I use a lot of contrast medium. I have actually burned through, this is my second bottle of contrast medium, and I'm more than 2/3 of the way through it. And it extends your paint, but what I do is I like to, it depends on what I'm painting. This is the first thing I ever painted in contrast paints in summer of 2019. I just bought these paints. I was in Dallas with Scott, and I wanted him to try to paint with me. And I was like, I think this will work for you pretty great. And so this brown is wildwood, and I just did it straight. I think I did these maybe with a bit, I think this was this ironed in yellow, thinned out, and then I put it on and then blended it, to give this little tabbardy thing working here. And then I went to like a green, which was I think this green here. And then I did a little bit of it here. I actually tried to blend the colors on the growth on this tree part of him here, I guess. But this was pretty quick. I did this in a little over an hour. I did spend more time on the sword. I was trying to do a little bit of like what they call non-metallic metal, but not with metal paint. It's not really a metal. It looks like a magical blade or something. I don't know. But they're not that hard, and you can actually go pretty quickly. As I showed, I was working on MODOK. He's the one that is in process. I'm going to do some kind of shading here for the chair that he's on. But I'm kind of done with the body, right? Maybe a little bit more stuff going on here. But this was probably 4 or 5 coats of this blue. It was actually the Griff Charger Bray, which is not here. This one here, which is a blue, even though it says gray in my opinion. But when you thin it out, it's kind of a blue-gray. I put the contrast medium in it. So I built it up. I did the same with the purple. It's at least 3 coats of purple on here. The yellow is 1. So the orange, it was very red-orange, in my opinion. And so after I painted the initial coat of orange, I went over it with this same yellow, and I thought I liked how it brightened it up. I don't really know a lot about MODOK, but I did like the show on Hulu. I spent a lot of time on his face and his mouth. Like, it's so gigantic, I couldn't resist doing some stuff on here to give it a little bit more natural look, and it turned out really great. And it wasn't that long. I basically it's the same gray that I used here that I just thinned it out a little bit and put it in between his teeth since he had such big teeth. And I think it looks great. So as I was saying, I was also doing the dragons from Flamecraft. They're just this color, each one of them has their own color. And I did the same kind of priming. This one was the hardest one because I actually was doing multiple colors. I did the red and the yellow. Usually I'm just starting with a light version of this color and then maybe going with a slightly darker version, or just I keep building it up potentially. But this is, you just paint it on, you let it settle, and it does the shading for you along with the contrast shading that you do. I mean the Zenithal undercoat. Because these paints are so thin, they're pretty transparent. Some of them are darker than others. You get to see all that detail, it settles in the things, and it gives you lots of variation on the surface. This kind of like Green Man kind of dragon here. I did a little bit of mixing of the colors where I did a slightly greener one, darker green, and then more yellow. But he turned out great, and I love their eyes on all these. They're really cute. This one here I see as like a princess. I don't know the story. The pink one seems like it might be the princess. I haven't painted that one yet. But I did like a sort of an iridescent quality on the scales where I used metal medium, which is a standard acrylic paint. And this one is designed for you to put other color in it so you can have other colors besides silver or whatever. And I just use it as a highlight of a silver. And then I put that on the scales only. And then put on multiple colors of this blue. So I put this blue and then this pink that sort of color, that purplish color that was on the wings, and just modeled it so that it kind of would have an iridescent quality, and that turned out great. And then this one here is cute. Turned out really cool. You know, that was supposed to be a darker blue. Now, I don't think the colors really matter. You just need to keep track of who's who. I also worked on, the last stream, I worked on Okoye. I pretty much finished her. She looks great. I really love the skin. This is mostly Gilliman Flesh, which is a Games Workshop color, or Citadel, for the skin. And it's the same color that is this color for the flesh. You just thin it with the contrast medium. And it does a pretty great job. And I really love the darker color. I think it's fantastic. Her and Shuri. Let me see if I can find, here's Shuri right here. I love Shuri. Looks so good. And her hair was the Wildwood color that is, I believe, straight. I might have thinned it out a little bit with contrast medium, but I think that looks so incredible. And it is really, really solid. And you know, as you paint, you get a little bit, you figure out your skills and you figure out how to build. Like one of the things you do is I like to build it up. So for, like I was saying, for this, you know, the blast here, I mostly did it as yellow. And then, I mean, it is yellow. And then I went in and used varying levels of the orange to blend and stuff. I did a little bit on the thrust here to give it, it's probably inverted as far as color goes. It might be supposed to be darker on the outside and yellow on the inside. I actually think that is accurate, but it's fine. This is a comic book, it doesn't matter. But if you're going to look at real thrust, I think it gets darker as it goes out. I also finished up Baron Zemo. I worked on him like a couple paint streams ago, and then maybe finished him up on the last one. I did finish his eyes. His eyes are white in the picture I looked at. The Dalmatian fur, or whatever it is, looks pretty great. And he turned out great. So I did a little bit of shading on the sword. So I used an actual metallic paint, which I'm kind of loath to do, but as you can see, I've used it here. Because I really want to try to do these. The initial goal was to only use the contrast paints, and they have no metallics in that paint. What I did is this, I painted this sword silver and then put a little bit of that Griff Charger gray as a blue, I think, or something, some sort of blue, very, very thinned out to give it some shading. Put more of it on the underside, a little bit on the end here. But he turned out pretty good, and I love the Dalmatian stuff. It's pretty funny. I also finished up Falcon. It's mostly done. I have not primed it, varnished it. I kind of wanted him to be a little bit more Captain America-y, even though it doesn't have a star on his chest. But it turned out pretty good, and it looks, for this one being a lot of flat surfaces, which is kind of the bane of using the contrast paints, it ends up getting a little mottled looking. They call it coffee staining. I feel you can fix that. As a matter of fact, let me show you one cloak. I think this one, yeah, this is the one. So here, you can see it pooled and it made like a weird little thing. Well, I just went in with the paint thinned out afterwards and just blended it in. So it doesn't look, there's dust on here. It doesn't look bad at all. I feel the cape looks pretty great. I was able to freehand this and it wasn't too hard to do. It's a lot to figure out, but like I painted this silver, then I put a wash over it, which they call shades from GW, but I actually think I use a GW one because it's black. I don't have a black one of the quick shade stuff. But this is a wash. It's not terribly expensive. You put it on, and so it fills in these little cracks and gives you some variation on the surface. Then I come back with a silver on top of that to highlight them. You know, just a little bit, just tiny bit on each one of the scales. And it works really well. This one here, I painted this white in here. Then I added the yellow. And I added quite a bit of it. And then I put an orange, which I think was actually, even though this says ironed in yellow, it is pretty orange. And if you thin it out, it gets more yellow. Now they have a straight yellow, which is, in my opinion, less of a contrast paint. It's more of just a shade because it has a single pigment. Single pigment means you are able to mix your colors and get more expected results, although I've had no problem mixing colors. This one here has, orange and yellow in it. So you don't really see it, but once you thin it out, it becomes, the yellow is stronger and the orange subsides. because I did I don't think she's in here. I did Captain Marvel. She's not, because she's in the box. And I did her hair, and it was basically all that color. And it's interesting. You have to learn what's going on with each one of them. You don't necessarily need to buy every one of them, especially because they're a little expensive. Now, before I continue, there are several other brands out there now that have made their own similar. Speed Paints is one example from Army Painter. They are $4 a bottle for about the same amount of paint, maybe more. Those are pretty great. I'm very eager to try them out, but every store I've been into, I only want to buy a few bottles. I don't want to buy a lot of paint. I already have way too much paint. But traditional acrylics, interesting. I understand totally not wanting them to be any different, but you know what? I don't feel they're that different ultimately. And just make the set, you know, like do one of the sets that is, and try it out. I think the contrast paints are stupendous, and you can do a very quick job. This was also the same thing here. Like I painted the gold. I used a standard Retributor, what is it called? Retributor Armor, or Retributor Gold. And then it's right here. I actually put it into another bottle, as they call decanting it, Retributor Armor. I painted it on there. Then I put the strong tone on that I showed a moment ago. And then I came back and put a little bit more on top of that to give you the bright spots. I also, on the last stream, I was actually, as I said, I was working on Shuri, not Shuri, Okoye. And hers, I used a different lighter gold, but then I put Army Painter on there, the quick shade strong tone. And then I came in and just did a little bit of line work where I took my brush with a little bit of brown and just went into on the inside edge of these, the panel segments, went along here, and then just did a little bit of highlights, and I think she turned out great. It's not as, it looked like gold leaf when we were doing it, when I was working on the other day, but I actually like the more subtle thing going on here. I actually think her neck should be gold. I might actually change that, because the reality is, I think she has like a, at least in the movies, that's really my point of reference. I don't know the comics so much. Nikki's the comic reader. But yeah, again, it doesn't matter. You do what you want to do. People will appreciate it. Especially, it's nice to have painted minis on the table. And I also did Kingpin. Kingpin was different because, thanks, Gare. This one I Zenithal highlighted, and then I decided I did not want to paint his coat because the white Zenithal highlighting looked really great. Now you can see here I made a mistake, clumsiness. Before I got started, I almost did what I recommend to many people, which is put a varnish on the paint first. Just especially the jacket. I probably should have done it on the pants as well, because what it would have done is if I could make a mistake, it's easier to clean up. So I was very, very cautiously painting these stripes with this brush, you know, getting it as the point as straight as I could, and then using, I believe, a contrast paint so it was semi-transparent already, and then just did the lines. And they look good. They're not the greatest, most straightest. But when I was painting the purple of the scarf, and I think it was actually this part down here, I had such a problem with the base, it was ridiculous. I accidentally touched this and put like a purple streak on it. So I went in and touched it up. It's not great. I'm not going to worry about it. But I love how this looks. I actually went in and did a little bit of paint in these little wrinkles, folds, and it gave it enough dimensionality, and I'm like, this is great. So I'm not going to really go beyond the undercoat on this because it looks really solid. You see all the shading. This is all from doing the spray pointing down, you know, black all over the place, gray at a 45-degree angle, and white from above, and it gives you a really strong finish. And then you varnish it, it should be fine. You need to varnish any of these paints, well, you should varnish all your paints, but especially any of these speed paints, contrast paints. They're thin. They definitely come off easily if you're not careful. And but I think he looks great. The tile, the biggest mistake here I did was I was painting this thinking I had a contrast paint on here, and it was actually black paint that I had painted these edges with, and I'd walked away from working on it for like 6 hours, came back, and I was like, oh. So it kind of looks splotchy, but you know, hey, he's walking around outside. It looks like he's going into a place here. Let's see what else. I think that's pretty much it for like the current things that are going on. I do need to varnish these. I have the varnish down. I'm going to do a varnish real quick. And you really need to do it. It definitely will protect them. It will change the shade a little bit. I have 3 types of varnish, and ultra matte is amazing. I believe it's thinner than the other varnishes, but it's very, very flat. I did it for only 1 mini so far. It was the Red Skull, and it looked really, really good. So I might do more of that, but right now everything so far has been painted. Beyond that one has been painted with the standard matte medium, which I'm going to do or matte varnish. So I'm going to do that right now. You got to shake it up quite a bit. You want to all. I mean, it may be part of the reason why it's a little too shiny sometimes, because I might not mix enough. This is a much larger bottle of varnish. This is AK Interactive. They make nice varnishes. Most of there's a lot of Spanish manufacturers of paint. There's Vallejo. They have great varnishes. There's MIG. Gosh, what are they called? MIG. It's somebody that was from AK Interactive. MIG. I have some of their stuff here. Yeah, I just knocked some stuff down. MIG Ammo. Interesting name. And they all make some great stuff. And there's also tons of other great paints out there. This is from Denmark, I believe. GW's from UK. They had made some paints back in the day when I kind of got out of using their paints for a while. They were making stuff from China, and there's nothing wrong with necessarily doing it in China, but those were not good. I'm sticking my coat in the wet palette. I also use a wet palette. What it does is it lets you come back to your paint. It has a sponge inside of it. This is a red grass one that I backed on Kickstarter. So it has a sponge. It's pretty wet. Then you have this paper, which usually I use vellum, but I'm using this stuff from Redgrass. This is reusable. They're these hydro membranes, I think is what they call them. But you can see this is what I painted the other day, a few days ago, and the paint's still wet. Contrast paints don't carry so well. Let's see how this one of these looks. They kind of gel. No, this is actually pretty good. This would be usable. I wouldn't, if I'm going for something where I want it to look great, I would use fresh paint. But if I'm doing things like touching up and stuff, I have no problem with this stuff. And I mix them both on the palette. Even though I don't think contrast paints are great on the palette, it came out just fine. And most of the time, at least it keeps me going, because here in Southern California, paints dry quickly. And you definitely want to try to, you need to work on wet surfaces. It's especially with the contrast paints, they do take a little longer to dry than standard acrylic, but they also dry pretty quickly for here. And compared to other places, we were painting in Germany in October with our friends, and it was a big difference working because contrast paints were staying wet for a while. Let me clear these things out of the way. I really like, I might as well show you the dinosaur that I did for Jurassic World Legacy of Isla Nublar. So as we were doing, we did a five live streams and plus 2 paint stream live streams for Funko. And as we unlocked them, I painted them. And, this is same thing. It was sprayed Zenithal. I came in and, so it was brighter on top, darker on the side. And I tend to bump it up a little bit more if I don't want it to be too dark. And then I came in and added this first color, then a little bit darker brown, then went in with spots, the brush just doing little dots to give you some more, visual interest on the scales. And then I did a wash over that with basically that color but thinned out to blend it in. This was just a blue. This was actually that metallic medium. I don't have a real bright silver, still don't have a real bright silver, and I bought some paints recently. And then I just put the Gnome oil is what it's called from GW. It's changed a little bit. Actually, this is the older version of it, and I haven't actually used that one yet. But I have been using the new one. Let's see if it's up here. It's one of the shades now. It might have always been shades. They changed all, because they used to be called inks. But yeah, this is the new version of it. It's pretty good. So I put that on there and actually made it look like the type of silver that I wanted. So it really looks great. I did all of them as we were unlocking them. This was the last one I painted. He's been sitting out for a while. But they turn out great. Here's a miniature I painted prior to contrast paints, but I used these paints right here that have since become contrast paints. This is Night Haunt Gloom. That is what this color is. Thinned out, I believe. Seems like it's kind of too green. Maybe I used the other one. Here's the other one. I don't feel that's it. This is the one I used for Scott's. So this is Hexwraith Flame. I think I used the one. And you know, I thinned it out. This was before that. You know, I mean, you could do what these claim to be doing, you know, the contrast paints with other paints. It's just the pigment is slightly different. It's not as chalky, you know, and that's some different, it varies with paints. But yeah, I did, you know, I actually didn't actually go back in. I did these in Germany as well and painted the little, because I think this is the Briar Queen or something like that. And there's a new color that's specifically Briar Queen. Maybe there was something like this. So this is a contrast here, and it's sort of this color, and I think it's meant for the, what are these guys called? The Night Haunt. And I mean, I love painting them, but boy, it's a lot smaller. But this turned out pretty good. It's a little kind of splotchy. This is my first time, and you know, I was really sort of more painting it, not just pouring it on, which you're really kind of supposed to do with the contrast paints. This poor thing has been broken. I broke it recently, and you can see right here, oops, it's out of focus. The break right here, terrible spot, but I got it to bond. I do believe I have another set of this. You can see here where it got broken and didn't patch well. But a little piece of this broke off here, and I think it is broken off before. It is just too delicate, and I shouldn't leave it out. I actually dropped something on it in here at the paint desk. But I think you can do great stuff. I mean, these were a little bit longer because I actually did standard paints, but that looks really, really great. So, you know, I obviously have to use standard white. There is transparent, or what they call apothecary white, and it's pretty good, but it's not a white. It's really a blue-gray, a very light blue-gray. So I don't know if that's I don't know. You can choose the path you want, but I like doing these. I like how quick results. I actually painted this one and this one in like just over 2 hours. And they look great. They're going to be great on the table. They'll be fun. We're going to actually film, I think we're filming Flamecraft this weekend, provided everything goes as planned. And we're definitely using these miniatures. They look too cool. The publisher actually got them to us. Brad, I could not remember his name the other day. He lives near us and dropped them by, and I was very excited. I kind of wanted them to be on the show with us, but it just hasn't. I know they're busy and they're trying to get the game fulfilled. Still having some problems with fulfillment. So I've got the varnish. So on the varnish, I don't put it on the wet palette. I have a little piece of tile that I bought from Home Depot. It's white. So it's, you know, $1 or something like that. But I like it because I actually mix paints on there. I do use more than one layer with contrast. I build them up. So as I said, like these here, the purple and the blue gray, were at least 4 layers. You can do the full-on single coat. This was, I think I might have thinned this a little bit. It was a single coat, looked good, and then I decided to do one more. The purple was a single coat, but then I came back in, because this is purple here at least. I'm using the Big Child Creatives, the people that actually sculpt and then paint the examples for Simon, and as reference, because I don't really know these characters, and I don't want to spend too much time because I want to just get into painting them because there's so many of them. And you know, there's nothing wrong with the color choices they made. You can do your own. So here's an example. When I first got into 40K, here was the mini I painted, one of the minis I painted. You know, with a little bit of learning from the web. This is pre-YouTube. And he turned out pretty good. It doesn't have any real shading or anything going on. But I could come back and fix him. But, so then I added a little bit of the pink that I used here on Baron Zemo to just give it a little bit of a different shade from what's on the carpet here. or the rug. And it looks great. You know, I mean, there's no, I don't feel, you definitely, in my opinion, have to do multiple layers on some of these smoother surfaces because they're very splotchy. They just get splotchy. Contrast paints work much better on organic surfaces. You know, they just settle in. I mean, for example, so this one creature from Marvel, Marvel, I keep saying it, Warhammer Underworlds. And then this one here, so I painted the bark, the tree stump. I painted it the dark wildwood first, then, and that was, I think, straight. Then I went in with a dry brush, a smaller version of this brush, this type of brush, and just dry brushed some white on the raised parts. And then I came in with this paint here, which is a warmer brown, needs to be mixed, and then just went over that. So it's 3 things, and it was very, very quick. You know, I was able to do that. I was working on another part of the bird while, because I did these in layers here, the feathers are in layers. So I do that, let that dry, then work on the stump again, and then just back and forth. But I generally like to build up the contrast paints. I think you get, you know, you can go crazy and just do this. This is, I mean, this one here was literally that style. I just put them on. I did do a little bit of blending here to go from this greenish to the orange to the brown. And I did the blending here. But you just, this is just me splotching the brown on there. It's pretty thick, and then it does a great job of setting. Now you can see here, I have varnished this, but like the little points are like wearing out. I handled this miniature a lot, so you definitely need to varnish at least 1 coat. But the end result is they look great, and they didn't take terribly long, and they're going to look really cool on the table. This was, I built these colors up, and I think I finally just pulled the trigger and went with a slightly darker one to get the deepest of the feathers. But it looks great, and it's going to be fun. And that's the thing, you just want to get these things on the table sooner rather than later. It's definitely better to have your minis painted. I like watching Ninja, and he says slay the gray, which is completely legit. There's tons of great tips out there on YouTube. I think they're so cool, and it's not, when I got like, I'm going to have a couple hundred minis of Marvel United, and when I get the new Marvel United Multiverse minis, I'm going to have nearly 300 minis probably. I think they're close to like 90 or so per Kickstarter so far. And they have another box coming out this summer, a Spider-Man box. So it's going to be a base box that's just going to be available in retail. And I will buy that because I'm crazy. I have far too much Marvel United. I was saying I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't buy anymore. And then they showed Captain Carter, and I'm like, oh shoot, I want them. So I did order. I did back it yesterday. Is that right? Maybe it's been 2 days now. I feel like I did back it yesterday. So it started 2 days ago. That doesn't seem right though. Anyway, so varnish. I've said it several times. Let me shake it up some more. Hey, Rain City Paintball, thanks. Good to see you. We watched their stream. Scott watches their pinball stream. I watched him last Friday. We're going to go play pinball when we go to Dallas next week. It's Scott's birthday, and he is crazy about the pinball as well. I mean, I love pinball. I'm just not, I only have the one machine. we have the Munsters machine, which I love, and I play it as often as I can. Let's see here. So let's get a little bit of the varnish. And you just put it on as best you can. Oh, one other thing that I've done recently is I bought these brushes on eBay. Royal and Langnickel. I think these are just educational brushes, but if you look, the points are pretty great. I use lots of golden Taklon brushes now because I was buying these. This one's not looking quite great. Let's see here. They're a couple dollars for these here. These were also on eBay. I've also purchased some of the Monument Hobbies ones. This is one of the Bomwick det cords. They're great too. These are just around $7 a brush. It is also synthetic. It's synthetic Kolinsky on that case. They're good, but I will tell you now, these have been great. $3, $2 something, and they last for me. They do get a little bit of a hook at the end if you're careful and you rotate as you're painting. Part of the issue is I'm poking the brush into stuff and it starts to curl the tip. You don't really want that. You want your point to be straight so you can do the detail. I use this brush here a lot, and it's getting tired. I burned through another one of these recently that was great. One of my old brushes, I wasn't painting nearly as much, and it's really destroyed now. Here it is. This is synthetic as well, but its tip is gone. Too much of that. Too much, you know, and I'm not a, this is the way I used to paint. I painted everything with these tiny brushes. And this isn't even as small as the brushes I painted with. I now use mostly this size of brush. So here's the, anyway, I bought these. These were $45, I think, before tax, free shipping. It's 144 brushes. They're mostly fantastic looking in here. And guess how much they cost? 37 cents a piece. So to me, that's the way to go. You just burn through them and don't worry about it. Because I was actually going through these kind of quickly, more quickly than I mean, I'm painting a lot more stuff, so I shouldn't really judge myself, but here's the brush I'm going to use. Since it's a varnish, I don't need to worry about the point so much, but I clean it up. I do have a pretty great pot from GW that has, I'll show you here, it's going to be zoomed in so you're not going to really see it clearly, but it has these rills. It'll focus because it's the water. But you can bring your brush to a point with these. You don't have to lick them. I'm not into licking brushes because yuck, the paint is terrible. Does not taste good. But I will put this on this mini. Let's start with Baron Zemo. So I will paint. I also use a paint handle. Often I use some of these from GW. They've changed them recently to what I think is maybe a better design. It's a much tinier neck. But I'll do that for this just because you don't want to handle them. You really don't want to handle them too much, especially with the oils. I also have these from Hobby Holders or whatever they were. These were Kickstarter. These are kind of cool. They don't have jaws like this does. You use a piece of poster tack or something like that. I have a piece sitting here somewhere. I peel it off this, because I've used this. This is a wood, basically a dowel that I got at Home Depot that I cut and sanded. And then I just put the poster tack. Wow, I am not seeing there's a ball of it here on the desktop. And you put it on here and then it holds it in place. And it does a pretty good job. You just press it on, but it takes a little bit more effort. Here's some of the stuff here. This is not stuff I've used yet, but this is the one that came with I think it came with the one that I got from Redgrass, which I will show you that one. I've done 2 Kickstarters of Redgrass. This is one of their mini holders. So you put it on the top. It's got a top that rotates so you can hold it in this position and rotate the mini and change it. This is really fun. These are great because you can hold your finger, like you can hold it together and stabilize, and then you rest your other hand on it and you can do a lot of great work. This I think is the short one. Let's see here. Yeah, this is the longer one. The short one's a little long for me, and I have bigger hands. I've used these actually not as much. I actually 3D printed. So this part came in the Kickstarter. Then they gave some STLs, and so I 3D printed this bit here to put a. It looks like it's bowing and cracking. It is. Interesting. And that probably because of this. So it's supposed to be for these bottle tops, but they do not go on evenly. I think the thread is not matched, which is okay, but yipes. But what's cool is these are just standard bottle caps here on this one. So yeah, I printed that, I'm sorry, this handle and this top. Boy, it is totally broken. So this is filament. I can glue it and probably save it, but yeah, it's falling apart. I have left this on here for at least 6 months, and I probably over-tightened it. Hey, thanks for the follow, Viranon. But the cool thing is, thank you so much. This is flexible, right? You can, maybe it's screwed on there. No, it's not. It should pop off. So yeah, this handle, you can do something different here. You can, does this one have threaded? Yeah, see there's threads here, so you could take this off, and it's holding this part on this that I 3D printed this. And they actually sell some of this stuff now. This was just the very first Kickstarter, and they couldn't really make molds for everything. And then I have one other style from another Kickstarter. Too many Kickstarters. Scott did this one. So this is a German manufacturer, Rathcore, and it has the same kind of idea that you can hold it. It uses cork though, so it sandwiches it between, and it's not going to work for everything, right? Like this does not fit in here. It's too loose. There are some tinier ones. You can also, let's see, yeah, this is for larger stuff. And it's more standardized sizes. I've used those more for GW things. But yeah, the cork, oops, I pulled it back out. The cork goes in there and wedges in, and then there's a little bit here to poke it out. But these are cool too. They're all really nice. This has a little stand for it so it'll stay up and not tip over. But the GW ones work great. And you can 3D print stuff as well. There's plenty of stuff on Thingiverse. Although you'd have to, as you see, it starts to break. I'm concerned about that. It's, you know, it's the way these print is it's just layer upon layer of plastic that it extrudes. It heats it up and then extrudes it. But boy, that's really terrible. I think I've only printed one of these. I do have a resin printer now, but again, it's not going to be any different. There's something with this where I don't have the right cap for it. If you don't over tighten it, it'd probably be perfectly fine. But I think I need to go in and glue this. I've only painted like one mini with this and that, but I love it, right? These are very good. You can just use one handle and then you just screw on the bottle cap. I 3D printed like a holder as well that would hold bottle caps. Hey, I got varnish all over the place. This is what I get for showing off stuff. Let's see here, it's on my jacket. But yeah, you know, it's nice that it's just basic bottle caps if you save them, and then you can paint your one, move to the next one. Let's not put that on there. It's too slimy with varnish. That's what I get. I know I'm showing off stuff. But I'm just trying. I mean, we have YouTube on today, so this is exciting. Thanks for watching, Steven. So now I spilled the varnish, got it on my jacket. Let's, this is the painting jacket. I specifically am not worried about getting paint on it. So I have a few minis to varnish, so let's just try them out. So I'll do all of this, and then I'll wait to do the bottom edge after it's completely dried. But you just really just put it on as smoothly as you can. It does self-level. Let me move that out of the shot. And it doesn't change the color. I have actually sprayed varnish on with an airbrush and it works fine. I don't like, you really got to wear a mask. When I first bought this varnish, I was like, oh, let's try it out in the airbrush, see how it goes. And I'm like, I'm only going to do this for a second. And enough stuff got in the air that I was like, almost, it was like I could feel it in my lungs already very fast, within like a minute. So you must wear a respirator if you're going to do anything like that. I mean, you should wear a respirator when there's any kind of airborne paints, if you're using a rattle cans or anything. If you're outside, you're probably okay, but I did this inside when it was raining, which you also shouldn't varnish when it's wet necessarily. It is wet here, but it's still relatively dry. And I am inside, so. But a couple coats, if you really need it, will really protect them, and you can handle them all you want. I mean, you know, Marvel United does not need minis. You could use a pawn, but of course you want the minis. They're great. I was looking at the sculptors and painters, Big Child Creative. I think it's Creatives. They're from Spain as well, and they have so many photos of stuff, and they are really quite great painters, and it's not even, they're not going crazy. You can do a really good job. But the one that I was particularly, I did not back Marvel Zombicide. I really thought, I mean, it looks great. Still looks great. They have a bunch of painted stuff. I believe that game is delivering some of the stuff out there, but I didn't back it. I just thought, I have so many minis. I really shouldn't be backing Marvel United Metaverse. I also do use a shinier version of the varnish for certain things. If I have a piece of glass or something, or a gem, I'll do that. You could do it with the gold, like to make it more bright, but I don't usually do it for that type of stuff. And I actually have several brands of I actually don't have a gloss in this AK Interactive. I only have Ultra Matte, Matte, and Satin. And Satin is too shiny for me as far as doing this stuff. Maybe for some other purposes. But I do have some gloss from Polyscale. This bottle is 20 years old. Maybe 22. And who knows how old it was when I bought it off the shelf. So this used to be, 2000. So it wouldn't have been much more than a year or two old. But this was a store that doesn't even exist in our area anymore called Last Grenadier. I'm bad. If I go into, it's not a bad thing, but if I go into a store, I will buy something because I want them to stick around. That did not work for Last Grenadier. But here in California especially, we don't have too many great stores. We do have one in the neighborhood now that I need to go visit. They do carry the Citadel paints. Only this other store that's sort of in the area, it's called Game Ogre. They have both Vallejo, I believe, and Army Painter stuff, and GW's Citadel paints. But they don't carry, we hadn't been going, you know, we went in there when I bought some stuff, and there was a bunch of kids, or a bunch of people, not just kids, playing Magic. And it was probably a weekend or something like that. Hey, what did I do to myself there? And you know, this was during the pandemic, and we were kind of freaked out because we were with my mom. She did not come in, but I was with her. So we hadn't really been going back. So I kept wanting to go and get some Army Painter speed paints just to try them out, particularly the red, which now they have a pretty good one with the GW ones. But I went in there finally a couple weeks back, and they had none of that stuff. They only have the contrast paints, so clearly they're all in on the contrast paints. And I would like to, they actually have some other styles of Army Painter paints that are standard acrylics that are they're in pairs of 3 called triads, so that you can have a light, medium, and a dark version of that color, and they'll work together. You're not putting white in it to make it lighter. You definitely don't do white in contrast paints. You just put in the contrast medium to thin it out so that it will be a lighter color over your bright undercoat or whatever. The rain was supposedly over when we got more rain. I'm sure that's it for a while, but I hope we get more. We really need it here in California. Let's see here. Make sure I got all that. But you can see it's already leveling out and drying here on the leg. You want to work on wet surfaces. You don't want to come back. Once it starts to dry, let it dry completely before you put any more varnish on or any other paint. You want it to, you don't want to tear it and give it, you know, like a messy kind of unflat or unsmooth surface. Obviously, sometimes it doesn't really matter. Whatever you're painting might conceal that. The other thing about contrast paints that people are frustrated with is that their opinion is you can't fix it easily. But I'll tell you, I've been doing tons of stuff where I'll mess something up. And let's get this out of here. I'm not using that. And, you know, where I've gotten another color on top of something I painted. What I do is I just paint some gray roughly in the shade that the undercoat was, and then just recover it. And usually I notice those things when I'm painting and I've got it on something else that's going to be a lighter color onto the gray. And so I'll just paint a gray that's close to it and then cover it up, and you almost can't ever tell that it was a mess before that. I think I got black on his finger there. He's got a black fingernail because I'm not going to go fix that. That's pretty funny. I didn't notice that. I must have touched it with another brush. That is the risk. You do not want all this stuff near you. And even when I'm painting, as I said, I messed up Kingpin. This stuff smells like paint more than the other paints. This smells like sort of house paint, which is weird. I think I just pulled a hair. No, I did not. So I did do one of the, so I was saving some of the paint streams on YouTube. I will put them into the live channel, I think, or whatever, into our GameNight lives. Or I may actually make a PaintNight playlist. Because, you know, they don't stay forever on Twitch, unless maybe if you're like a big time streamer, they might keep your stuff for longer, but they don't for us. About 2 months maybe. See, now it's already pretty dry. Does have more of a sheen than I probably would like, but it's okay. I need to paint the ground up to the black. Anyway, I will put in the stream that I did. There's a Jurassic World, actually it might even be on YouTube. There's a Jurassic World Legacy that I painted, one of the dinosaurs, the one that was from Jurassic Park 3. And I did that one with the dry brush method. I hand painted the black with a standard black primer. I use Stynylrez Res from Badger, and that's designed for airbrush, but you can absolutely paint it by brush, and I did. It looked great. It leveled out, looked smooth. And then I went in and dry brushed the highlights, and that one came out really neat. I wonder if it's sitting here. I might be able to pull it out so you can see it. It turned out really well. It's a different look. When Adam did another live stream for us, Adam Smasher on Tabletop Minions, oops, I got some down here. When he did another stream for us, he did some Hellboy stuff, and he painted 2 versions, one that was airbrush primed and one that was dry brushed, primed, or not primed, yeah, primed. And they had a different look. It was like a minion, some sort of Hellboy, you know, like bad guy minion. And one of them, it looked like a leather coat, and then the dry brush one looked like a wool coat, and they looked great. So you just have to decide, you know, what you think. Well, you should experiment. There's tons of minis out there you can paint from your games, I'm sure. Some that may not meet as important as you're worried about for others, but give yourself a shot at seeing what you can do. And then, you know, advance. It's not hard. It's worth doing it. For me, it's a great relaxation thing, even though, like, I'm often busy and I really don't want to come out because I just got so much to do. But in this case, it's always ends up being a joy, and I'm happy I'm doing it because it's a real relaxation. You don't sweat it. You just get as good as you can, and you'll increase your quality. And again, they look, you know, people that, like Scott painted his, he was doing them with me on live streams in 2021, and they were great. I thought he did MODOK, it was great. He did Thanos, it was great. Mine are pretty good. I mean, mine are different. So Thanos was the one where I really broke the rules. I did Ultron as well, but Thanos I just used lots of metallic. I tried to do, you know, like a ochre kind of yellow color, and it just didn't look good. Scott's looked great. It was just different, right? He used rattle can to prime it, so he sprayed it all black, then sprayed the white, and it did. You know, it's spray cans are a little bit more. You see the speckles a tiny bit, but it's not a problem. It looked different but great. Okay, so Baron Zemo's gonna dry. I really shouldn't touch him at all. So let's get on to Falcon. Thanks, Dylan. It's not that hard. I'm trying to encourage everybody to do it. You can get good at this. It's not too hard. This process really makes it relatively easy to get nice results. We did do a top 10 videos, which I'm going to have to edit tomorrow, that was on the BGG show. It was Dave, Nikki, Candace, and myself. We have not done we did a BGG show before Gen Con maybe, or Spiel. I think it was Gen Con. We haven't done a BGG show in a long time because Scott, you know, I actually created the show so that Scott would be a host so people would get to meet Scott. And he's just like, it's too much work, and I get it. So we're going to try to bring it back at least once monthly, have some news. But we did a top 10. People keep asking for us to do a top 10, but we did a top 10 of 2020. So that'll be interesting. 2020, goodness gracious, 2022. And Dave, actually, a lot of his games were played on Board Game Arena. But it was fun. And, you know, there's a great, we did a video probably 6 or 7 years ago where it was our top 10 games from like classics, so 2007 and earlier. And it was a great one. We actually had, I think we had Aaron and Mark Johnson might have been on here for that, and Mike Nikoloff and Nikki and myself, of course, Dave, Aaron. I might have said Aaron twice. And it was cool because, you know, you got to see like a lot of what Nikki and I like. We were introduced by Dave or Aaron or Mark or Scott. Scott was with us on the iPad, which actually worked pretty well. That was prior to us having any of the real live streaming gear. And I mean, we had stuff because of the conventions, but like call-ins, we didn't have that ability. We now have that ability with the software we use called vMix. But it was cool to do that. And we're talking about maybe doing the next 10 years. So from 2007 to 2017. We're already 6 years in, so that we only have to wait 4 more years to do that top 10. Yeah, see that? It's kind of stripy, but it should level out. So the Vortex mixer I have is from Amazon. I bought it probably 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, called Lab Genius. It's been great. It was about $70-some. It might be a little bit more. You can look out for deals. I saw an more inexpensive one on there, and you know, like $40 or $50. I don't think you need to go crazy, but this one has been solid. The only concerning thing I would show you, but it's wired in. The silicone top is still fine, but there is no replacing it. So if that breaks down, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I really like the Vortex mixer because it is very helpful. As a matter of fact, you can see it. Ninjon, I don't know how long he's had his, but it's in his videos, and he has little googly eyes on it. And when he shows his desktop, you can see that sometimes. It's the same exact Vortex mixer. It's pretty great. It's not terribly expensive, and I got to tell you, it definitely saves on the tennis elbow equivalent of mixing your paints. I have done when I've been painting a lot of stuff, I've kind of hurt my elbow just shaking the paints and shaking the paints, because that is the one thing about contrast paints, you especially have to mix them because the pigments settle to the bottom. I don't know what the formulation is and how they do all this. I really would love to talk to them on how to do it. I did talk to some folks at Spiel, but you know, they're not the paint guy. They did an event. I wish that somebody had actually had an interview with them, because I have so many questions I'd love to ask and see how the stuff was developed, because it's kind of cool. Golden made like a high flow paints, they called them, that was essentially the same kind of thing. And I have one bottle of that stuff that I bought a long while back, but it's the same idea, kind of. And I'm intrigued how they came up with it, because now everybody is doing an equivalent paint set. Vallejo just introduced one. I think Army Painter just announced its second batch of colors, because I think they only did like 24 colors initially. And GW had 30-something in the first go, and then added another 26, I think. 2 of which were like integrated from the line from a technical paint. That was the stuff from the 2 that I showed you, the Hexwraith Flame and the other, what is it called? Night Haunt Gloom. These names, Night Haunt Gloom. Those are now both officially contrast paints, and they're slightly different. But you definitely have to shake them up. There's no doubt about it. I'm sure all of the speed paint, contrast paint stuff out there require you to do that, because it's a formulation, I believe, that is multiple pigments. Some will settle, some will stay suspended. And additionally, it soaks in, right? It settles into the crevices and the folds to give you that dimensional quality that you're trying to get. This was a hard one to paint. It's just a lot. The wings are crazy. I did Vulcan. I think he turned out a little better than this one. Here he is. You know, and it's kind of similar, lots of wing, but I'm just happier with the end result. I love this one, but it's just not, maybe the feathers make it a little bit easier to do. These panels are crazy, but Vulcan's cool. Is it Vulture? Did I say Vulcan? Vulture. There you go. Movies only. I've not watched that movie enough. Vulture. So yeah, these videos will have a home on YouTube. Same with our GameNight Live. Part of the deal with GameNight Live is it's us just an opportunity to try a game out, and it's not meant to be perfect because we're just winging it. Nikki's, she wants to get better at teaching games, so she's putting more effort into that. And she's already much better than I am. And so she'll teach those. And we didn't want them to be necessarily lost, but we're like, well, it's not representative of what we're doing on Game Night necessarily. But the thing is so many people want to watch this stuff. Well, so many. I don't know how many people really. But they'd like to watch, and they don't use Twitch. And I totally understand if you don't like using it. It's a little intimidating. It's definitely more community oriented. There's a lot more stuff for the audience, which is pretty awesome. But we don't really do that. We're not good enough at that. I went to an event, I think the first one was in 2017. This is 2017. I went to International Tabletop Day. They had a live stream event in Burbank, which is not too far from us. And so I was involved in like the second group in the morning. So I was there at like 7 to stream at 8 or something like that. Our friend Steph Straw, who was in chat a little bit ago, she was there for a Twilight Imperium that was like 16 hours or something. It was crazy. And I said, are you crazy? So I dropped her off at 6, and I was there till after my stream. And then I left and then came back at 2 because they wanted to do an interview. because they were just talking about BGG. And then I went home again. I might have not done that. I might have hung around till after that stream. Anyway, we came back and picked her up at like 10 o'clock at night, and they hadn't even fed her very well, because those people were on camera for, they had breaks, but it was a long time. And they weren't even on camera the whole time. They were just playing the long game. And so we took her to in and out after that. But I was going to tell you something about that, why I even brought that up. Who knows? I'm a goofball. But it was fun. I had a good time. But there was something it had to do with live streaming. Oh, I know what it was. So there was a couple ladies on the stream I did, which was we played Super Rhino Hero. And they were amazing at tracking one of the, gosh, what was her name? She was really great. You know, they brought a TV out, rolled a TV on wheels to look at the chat, and they were wonderful, like really paying attention to it. And my brain can't really pay attention to it. Nikki does a better job than I do at looking at this. I am now looking at two chats. I have the Twitch chat and I have the YouTube chat. Oh yeah, Jigsaw, Army Painter Paints. I did the same thing. I did it with a reciprocating saw. It works great, but it's not great for the desktop. If you do, and the contrast paints settle way too quickly for me. So but I think it'd probably be, if you were to just shake them up after you did, like, let's say you sat down and stirred up all the paint you're going to do, you could probably just hand shake them up for the rest of the session and they should be fine. But you definitely need to really shake them up a bunch. But yeah, I have my jigsaw one, not my jigsaw, which is essentially a giant jigsaw, was my reciprocating saw. I made two blocks of wood, drilled through them with probably a blade bit to make the holes, and I made them different sizes for the different brands of paint bottles, and then sandwiched them over a saw blade that I got rid of the saw part so you wouldn't hurt yourself, and that worked. But it was big. A jigsaw would probably be a little bit better. But I do love the vortex mixer. It's very simple. I can do them as I need them. I don't have to do much, in my opinion, much pre-thought. Now, you might have the room to actually have something like a tool like that nearby. I don't. This is my little nook here to paint is in the studio, just away from where we actually film, because I wanted to connect into all the tech that we have. I actually was going to originally wanted to do it in the house, and I was going to set up a completely different rig, and I just was like, I don't want to have another computer sitting around for that. Even though we have the computer, I just didn't want to be moving him in the house or leaving it in the house. And so this worked out. It's plenty of good space. It's actually a little bit of crafting space for if Nikki wants to work on some things as well. But we mostly leave the paint set up here so I can paint, because that is the problem. When I have to clean up every time, I don't get back to it because I think about, oh, I don't want to paint, it'll be a problem. I did start getting it better by using a paint tray. Let me see if I can show it. Well, I can't really show it. But it's laser cut, or it might be actually not laser cut, it's probably CNC'd, MDF and melamine coated out MDF, and it's pretty great. And you can just leave your paint, your brushes, move it in. And so I was doing that, and it got me painting more. But then when I was serious about, because that's what I was doing when I painted with Scott, I would just put it on the table over there where we film. And mostly I did just fine. Occasionally I spilled stuff, and that was a bummer. So that was what the real impetus was, to set something up so that I could just come out and paint when I had time and easily stream. You know, I'm doing it once a week, and I come out and do it, and it's easily done. So it's definitely having some established place that you can paint will make it so that you will be more likely to continue. I would not invest in a crazy thing until you know that you're enjoying doing it. I would get a little tray. I actually have a little tray that would probably be good. It was the top, it's kind of dusty and stuff, but it's just a little tray that was on top of a cart. So I saved it. Actually, I saved this one to prime stuff, like spray can prime stuff. But it's got, this has little pegs, you know what I mean? This is just something that came off a cart that we got rid of with a new cart that will hold stuff better. Because the wheels were breaking the frame of the cart on the old one. It was a very old cart. It was like Nikki's before we were even together. It was one of her art carts. But yeah, figure out something that'll work. I actually have these little trays here. I can show you the minis, sort of. These were stuff that I actually made out of wood, little trays that I did for architectural stuff. This was for finishes. And so it was something I did when I was working for an architectural office as a designer. And it's cool. It has little finger holes so that you can carry it. And I was using that for a little while, but it wasn't quite great because it has an edge. It's a box, right? The one that I have here, I'm going to show you. It's kind of hard to deal with here. This one here, I've got so much stuff on it because I have my 3D printing stuff over here as well. I'm going to show stuff and make a mess once again. This one comes with little bottles. Man, I'm really making a mess. Camera tools. Okay, so this one here has these levels. I can't remember it's a Polish company that makes these. They actually were hard to get. I bought 2 of these, one for Nikki, one for myself, and then Nick Murphy needed something, so I gave him one, thinking, oh, I'll buy another one. I gave him one of ours that hadn't been used because Nikki hadn't really used it. She can use this one. At the time, I was like, oh, I'm sorry, Nikki, and I was trying to find her a replacement. You can see it milled it here, and it kind of blew it out, but it's fine. And it has a melamine surface so that you can clean it up easily. Although our friend Sebastian has this exact model. Interestingly, I couldn't believe he had the exact same one, and his is just covered in paint. He just doesn't let it bother him, and that's really the way you need to do it. I'm crazy in that I want everything to be as as organized and clean and clear as possible, but you really shouldn't worry about it too much. Thanks so much. They're really snowy. I love painting them, and I want people to do the same. It's really not that hard. You get better and better as let me show you the first minis that I did. Actually, let me go get that box. They'll be the first ones I painted out of this. Now, of course, I had plenty of painting experience prior to that, but my technique has changed. I've learned things as I've gone along. Let's see, there it is, right on the top. Win. So I started with, I believe the Hulk was the first one I painted. And, I was my first go with contrast and doing paints and doing this type of mini. I had done some other work with contrast paints. I particularly like doing the GW stuff, so I was working on those Warhammer Underworlds, which I love those sets because there's, 3 to 5 minis generally in each one of those. And you're not painting too many, and you're not getting too obsessed with it. I'm having a hard time with my cable here for the headphones. But yeah, you'll see my progress has evolved. Even, I'll show you, I think, yeah, in this set, I basically did these all around the same time. I should pull these out of here. Although I really should leave them in here so they don't get dusty. I need some place to, I really need to figure, hey, look, it's missing a mini. What is is it stuck in the thing? Nope. Who did I pull out of here? Oh, you know what? No, it's not Taskmaster. He's right there. Or she, depending on which version. So, Hulk was the first one I painted. He looks good. But like splotchiness, let's see here. His purple pants, I went for, and he evolved. I actually did more work on his hair. I actually put a glossier finish on his hair, so he had shiny hair. And then Captain America, he looks pretty good, but he's a little splotchy. I worked forever on that shield, just because it's hard to do, that circle, and I'm better at it. I I really wanted to do Ant-Man. I did a cool thing on the, for me, I was like, as I'm painting, I'm like, oh wait, quarters are clad. So they have copper in the middle. So I put the copper in it and painted that, you know, and this is pretty basic. But what I've started doing is more, and this is early. This is, I think I did Ultron second or third. We do want to play Warhammer Underworlds. We've actually taught, I mean, I played it with a few times with Sebastian, and I'd like to do it. We just haven't gotten to it. What we're going to probably play first is Warhammer Quest Lost Relics, which is a small box Warhammer Quest game. So we'll get to it. I'd love to do it. That's why I painted those minis. Taskmaster was a little bit later. Hey, that's stuck. See, that's what I'm paranoid about with the varnish. They don't seem to be too sticky, though. It's like as they've dried, they've gotten harder. This was Wasp. I looked at some, I used the cards as reference for this one, you know, like the playing cards. And I don't know what the deal was with why it looked, but it looked good, and I'm like, oh, who cares? It'll be blue-green. And the dye turned out really cool. I think I might have used a shinier paint. Maybe not. Varnish. But here's like where I started to shift gears. She was probably 4 or 5, but you know, I started to do shading with a different color, you know, a darker version of the skin tone. So like her hair was casting a bit of a shadow. It's mostly black, right? So it doesn't have a ton of things going on there. I don't generally use actually black for this stuff. I use that Basilicanum gray because it's a very dark, it makes, for me, it makes it look kind of like leather or whatever, although their characters don't seem to be in leather. Here was one I was talking about. So the yellow, the yellow here on Captain Marvel was that ironed in yellow thinned out, and then put that on first, then I built up the color with a little bit of this darker versions of that color. But they turned out really cool. I mean, each, you know, and these are, I mean, Iron Man, that's where I figured out how to do the, boy, I feel like that stuff is sticking. You know, the blast stuff here, this was just layering on the color, starting with a thinned out version and then adding it more. But, you know, this is, there's no subtlety. I just literally just put the color on and then went with it. And then this one might have been one of the reds, slightly thinned out, because I felt both of them are really strong. But this is probably Blood Angel's red, thinned out a bit with the contrast medium. But look cool. I did try to do some like glowing for the eyes, you know, glowing for the repulsors and the, what is this called? Not remembering. But what is the one that's missing here? I need to figure this out. I should look at the box. I should put it in the box, whatever it is. Ooh, right into the rules, into the paint. I'm a klutz. It's okay. Wow. Yeah, don't have your palette. I mean, I haven't even used the palette today. Okay, there we go. Clean enough. It's not in between the pages, so it won't stick together, I don't think. Nope, there's a little bit. That's what I get. Clumsy. Showing off too much, as Stephanie said earlier. But let's see, I want to figure out who's missing. Ultron, America, Captain Marvel. The Red Skull. I could have showed the Red Skull. He was out. Here's the Red Skull. I probably pulled him out earlier because he is pretty cool. This was the matte varnish. And this was, I didn't actually have like a military green. This was Plague Bearer flesh thinned out. One coat of the Blood Angel's red thinned out a little bit. It's a little splotchy, but it looks cool. But then this is the ultra matte varnish. It looks great. It's a little thinner, so I'm nervous about it, but he's cool. Let's put him back and not make any more of a mess. Done, done, done. That is not who belongs there. Yay. But yeah, I would like to figure out a better way to store all this stuff. You know, they kind of... But here's the deal. I've put them in with the lid on it, and they haven't stuck, or... You know, I'm really worried about the paint sticking to the other plastics and stuff like that. But it seems to be fine. put this away before you make more of a mess. I do love painting them, and I was never into the chibi stuff, and then I bought this because I was like, wow, these are really kind of cool. The ones that I was into, excuse me, not were ones from Super Dungeon Explorer. Now, I've never played the game. I saw the mini. Scott gave me a box set of it at one point, and I really like those, and they're kind of similar to this stuff. And so I kind of was all in on this. I had no idea how big they were going to be. So here's Zemo. He's done. He's dry. There's a little bit of sheen on his jaw, but it's good. So now I'm going to I'll do a little bit of varnish. It's still tiny bit tacky. I mean, you're not really, but I'm going to put the black on the base. It's definitely dry enough to put another coat if I would overlay a bit on the bottom. We did play with these, not these here specifically, but the painted minis on when we did Marvel United. We kind of want to do more. I actually painted the X-Men set as soon as I got it because I think I paid for that. I paid for a split shipment again on that one, which is crazy. Especially on the first one, they were selling it at that base box right away on Amazon, which was a bummer. Cool. Anyway, they're fun. I have painted Spidey. I've not done Daredevil yet, but I will show you Spidey. I'm actually contemplating painting Jessica Jones as Karen Page. So here's the Spidey ones. I've actually done all the Spidey ones I have access to right now. There's one more, like, it's $20.99 or something like that. I did Spider-Gwen, or whatever, Ghost. Don't really know them all. Let's see, where's the other one? There's definitely more in here. Here it is. Here, I'll show you the Mysterio too. So Mysterio, I knew how the paints were going to work. You can't, like, this is a big globe, it would not be smooth. And so you could do it, what you would probably do if you really wanted it to be smooth is airbrush the color on. You can actually absolutely airbrush these paints, the contrast paints, and they turn out great. But I knew I wanted it to be swirling clouds, so I just went on there with it white, white paint, and then just put the blue, and I just specifically kept swirling it around until I got what I was satisfied with. And it's not going to settle. Hey, look, I got some green on it there. That's typical. That's funny. I didn't even notice it. I can blend it in with some more blue. And he turned out cool. I really, really liked how. And this was. I just painted I just didn't leave I didn't paint over these seams. The little piping or whatever, and then did those in yellow last. I did the $20.99. He's cool. I don't really like the white stuff. I'm better at that now. I did this one how I would normally do it instead of. I would do the same thing if I were doing one now. But you can see, this is my evolution, right? It's much more interesting. I've developed more techniques for just painting the contrast paints. I did Miles Morales. He's cool. I was able to paint inside and then paint the red on top of that. So it turned out I did not paint his eyes. I just let the primer do it. It looks pretty cool. I don't generally do a lot of detail on the base. It depends. Sometimes there's a little bit more interesting stuff and I'll do more. But generally I do everything gray. I think you want to kind of focus on the miniature. Spider-Gwen, or I can't remember her other name. You can see I actually did the striping underneath. I painted the red very carefully and then painted the blue over that. If I had done any red, I just put a little gray on the raised part and then put the blue over it. Turned out good. Tried to do a little bit of like her cowl would cast a shadow over her face. It looks pretty good. Not as cool as this was done near the time that I did Black Widow. Here's Spider-Ham, same idea. Did the red. Turned out great. don't know what I was doing there with that copper. I think that was actually this color, Bort Block Bronze. It was Bort Block Bronze. And then here's Spider-Man. So I did this one after I did Vision. And I spent more time on Vision's backdrop, you know, his wall, because it's pretty prominent. He's passing through it. And so I decided not to do that for Spider-Man, because, you know, I generally don't, like you can see the ground is gray. But he's interacting with that piece, so I'll do that. But Spider-Man, I just did it gray. And I did some touch up and lined in between the bricks with the black, you know, with just the brush as thin as possible, and then put it on there. And like I said, you could really solve your problems if you just varnished it and then did this, and then did another varnish coat or something. But I did some shading on that. I did the webbing here to have the detail. Oops, off camera. But yeah, I didn't paint his eyes either. I believe they're just the prime, the undercoating. And it turns great. It turns out great. They look really good. They're not like the greatest paint jobs ever, but they look fun. And they're definitely generally better than most pre-painted minis. Although, you know, they do nice jobs on those too. I'm always like, heck, if they're done, you don't have to worry about it. But trying to put these back, I'm keeping them like in. Yeah, you can see like splotchiness here on this blue on his head. But it's not that big of a deal. I've learned more since I painted this. I did work hard on the cape. It's all the same color. I just kept, it's that ironed in yellow. It's thinned out, and I just kept painting it over, and like I painted the whole thing yellow, and then I just kept painting between these, you know, details darker and darker to give you that look. And it's great. They look cool. I didn't do that crazy of a job on the gem. I might actually come back and do that. I like painting gems, or the Infinity Stone, or whatever it is. Okay. Let's see. What else? So that's it. I really like painting the Spider-Man stuff. I'm looking forward to that box this summer. Okay, so Baron Zemo's fully painted, varnished. Let's do Kingpin. Let's see how that goes. Now, as I said, I did paint it, but it was all just the varnish. I mean, the undercoat. And I think his coat looks so good that I couldn't do as good a job. I'm just not that great of a painter. Blending is not easy necessarily. Let's put on another. Oh, I'm not done with Falcon. Let's finish Falcon. He's close though. Wow, it looks great. So you can see it's leveled out. It's pretty dry already. Now I can tell this is better because the black is, I don't know what I did there, but it was very matte. So I might have used a little bit of standard black paint. And that could have been my confusion there, what I did on, because I was doing this at the same time as I was working on Kingpin when I did the tiles. I was like, oh, this is not the paint. Came out real gritty. This is why I have a problem with white. For me, and I'm using Monument Hobbies white, which is actually a pretty good one. In my experience, I've not had much luck with the stuff from Vallejo. I have several bottles of like a off-white one. Thanks so much for the follow, Wingser099. Painting all these notifications are all on Twitch. We don't have anything in place for YouTube yet. We're just starting to stream on there. We'll just see how it goes. Hopefully Twitch won't get mad at us. But you know, most of our audience is really on YouTube. So we just decided we keep trying it. Did I do any wet blending on Wasp's head? Let's see. I don't think so. Where's Wasp? She was here a minute ago. Let's see here. I don't know. I don't even see her right now. Oh, she was the green. She's inside the box. I don't think so. I did do, you know, I did show you some of the hair that I've done. This is Gamora. Her flesh is green, which I was very happy with. I'd already done Green Goblin with the green, and I was really so happy with myself on this one. This was definitely wet blended skin, and it turned out great. I worked really fast. You do have more work time with the different colors going on. Maybe, I don't think that was done that way. But what I did here for her hair, for Gamora's hair, is I painted white streaks over the gray. You know, I didn't put a lot of color because I wanted her hair to be darker, but it was still gray, a gray. And then I just put some white streaks on top of that, then put the color over that. And it gives you the variation of the hair, so there's some highlights. But yeah, this one I wet blended. I absolutely went from the chin, so this was all the lowest color of yellow that I had at the time. You know, most thinned out, so it was as close to yellow. And then I wet blended the green that I already had prepared, so it was lighter here and then darker. And I think that turned out really, really well. Yeah, they look cool, and I'm excited to do some more green skin, to be honest with you, because I'm much happier with these than I was with Hulk. But Hulk is cool. It doesn't really matter. He'll be perfectly fine. Hey, thanks for the follow. Let's see here, who we got? 2 ghouls, 1 cup. All right. But yeah, you know, you can, as your skills get better. I mean, these look a lot different than those. Although Shuri was one of the first ones that I was especially happy with. You know, more skin than I'm used to having on the miniatures, and it looked great. And the little white dots, you know, those are all raised, so it wasn't that hard. But it's hard. And went in and did a pretty decent job on that. And they look really, really nice. You know, this is using white paint as well. There's no way I could do it, so I went back and lined the edges of her suit here, her knee pads and chest plate with the white, and it looks pretty good. You know, it's not the greatest thing ever. I tried to do some blending on the gauntlets that she has here. The interesting thing is the 3D printed model originally, you know, the prototype for the campaign, those mouths were open, and I think they probably did the right thing because you have like energy building up or something inside there. But yeah, they look cool. And I got to say, you know, that flesh color, that's a fine example here. This is the same flesh color on these. Just this one is thinned out with the contrast medium. It's a couple coats of very thinned out flesh tone. And then I think I did like a lighter version first, and I'm like, because I was trying to go for a slightly different skin tone for her versus like Shuri. And, or who else did I do? I did somebody else that has dark skin too. And I just was like, well, it looks good. I'm just going to go with it as is. I think she's really, really neat looking. I don't want to put that over there. It needs to be varnished. Both of these need to be varnished. Don't get carried away. Thanks so much, Sam. I'm having fun painting them. The goal is now to get through all 180 and 190 of these in time for the next batch to come in, so I'll be ready to paint them. I don't know how many they're going to do in the... They've already, you know, it's already day 2 or 3 of the Kickstarter. It's actually day 2, I think. And there's a bunch of already stretch goals met. They're nearly, I think they're like an $820,000 maybe or something like that. I'm wondering if it will do as well. See, you know, I don't know these characters that much. I didn't really know the X-Men stuff either that well. But they're pretty great minis, and I haven't even painted any yet that have the clear, well, they're not clear, they're transparent or translucent, like fire wings and stuff like that for Dark Phoenix and stuff. And I want to try to figure, I'm trying to figure out how to do those. I don't know if I'll prime them, because I looked at the samples that they painted for the campaign, and you know, they might not have had access to a clear resin that looked good, or they just decided to do them in gray and paint them or whatever. But I want to try to use the clear, because I think that would be fun to do. But I was talking to my friend Brian about it today. He's like, have you done any of those yet? And I said, no, there's none in the base box. I've only just done the base box of X-Men. So I did Magneto, Mystique, is his name Beast, and Wolverine, and Cyclops. So that looks pretty good. It's already mostly dry. You know, it has leveled out pretty well. So I'm gonna let the base dry, and then I'll come back with the edge. So here we go. Let's do Kingpin. I'm just trying to. I was very happy to actually have some time to paint this weekend. I will not have so much time this weekend. We have filming to happen. Yeah, some people really don't like to brush on varnish, and I'm sure it looks, if you're doing like showpiece stuff, I'm sure it's nicer. It's even a little more smooth, but brushing on varnish is not a problem at all. It looks really good. I don't thin it at all. I don't know if you really should thin varnish, and it would be kind of nice if it could because it would be a little smoother, but I'm just nervous about any kind of, after painting all this stuff, I'm nervous about any fogging up or anything, so I just do everything as I'm told it to do with that. I used to use Tester's rattle can matte spray varnish. It's pretty good, but I just don't like spraying stuff like that as much because the fumes are just terrible. And this is an acrylic varnish, and it does a great job. Yes, I won't be able to raid when we exit. And maybe I can. Maybe I just go to the computer in the studio. But I can't do it here now that I'm logged out. It's such a bummer. I thought I had figured it out because I kept being logged out on the Mac over here by me. So I still have to use the Mac to actually control the stream. I'm not using remote access. I'm using gosh, what is it called? TeamViewer, and to actually control the vMix machine that we have. But I can't get on there to run it, so I don't have the tools on my phone here. I actually thought about fixing this little splotch that I had messed up here. You can see a little bit of a brown, and that's because the white I was using, I think, had just the tiniest, it's a slightly different white than the primer that I used. But I just decided not to worry about it. But I was thinking about just doing a little bit of airbrushing just on that portion, because you can do a light amount on it, would probably do a good job covering it. But first of all, it's been raining, and I didn't want to airbrush anything like that while it's raining. And it's not that big of a deal. Actually, part of it is I want to show everybody that yes, you make mistakes, yes, you can fix them, and it should be just fine. Most people are going to be paying attention to the front of this miniature because it's pretty cool looking. Yeah, I can't wait to paint the X-Men ones. I do want to do the Dark Phoenix one because it's like an orange plastic, clear, transparent, translucent plastic. It's really neat. I have done so little of the X-Men though. I think I've done 9, just the 9 in the main box. Going through the varnish pretty quickly. You should actually do things in batches. It's probably better. And one of the things about the brush is the varnish is different, like sticks in the brush more, and I wouldn't want to be mixing between varnish and paint. Even though they're both acrylic, they obviously have something different going chemically. Wow, look at that, back is almost dry already. I'm sorry, it's not on camera. But I definitely think I would have probably done a better job on the pinstriping if I just varnished it, because you can easily fix your mistakes. I was still able to mostly fix the mistakes, because I did have a couple, like siding, you know, I'd paint a portion of it, then I'd bring the brush back in to do the next part and just make this fat blob. So I was able to clean it up. Yeah, I think it might be interesting. I mean, you know, I don't know Jennifer Jones. I never watched that Marvel show. I actually haven't watched Daredevil, to be honest with you. I did buy the Blu-rays. Actually, you can't. I mean, you can. I bought the iTunes first 2 seasons, and then I think I bought like an import Blu-ray after that. I actually prefer to own the Blu-rays than the iTunes stuff. But I haven't watched it yet. I'm terrible. I don't watch a lot of TV. But yeah, if I paint Jessica Jones's, although she's not an action hero, right? So I guess maybe I should just do her as Jennifer Jones and not Karen Page, or just get a second one. Although I don't know, that might be one. I think it is one of the stretch goal ones. And I think those, although they may do them again, they did them. The varnish is drying here already. It's got a film. On the previous Kickstarter, they actually added, you could back the previous campaign. Our friends Michael and Christina did that. I don't know that they went for everything, because they're not necessarily as crazy as I am. But I hope they do something, because I know, well, although Nick Murphy was saying he wished he'd backed it all, he was saying to me when we talked to him last week, talking about the campaign, he's like, he didn't think he was going to go crazy. He was probably just going to get the main box. But at $100, you get the main game and another box and all the stretch goals, which is crazy how much you're getting with all the miniatures. Now, the X-Men had just multiple versions of the same characters. There's like Cyclops in multiple games and different versions of him, and that was crazy. I haven't even opened any of that, like the red and blue team. I don't even know. I just was like, well, I'm going to go for it all, because initially I only backed the $100 level, I believe, and I go, that's all I'm doing. And then we played the game, because we hadn't played it yet. The word was the game wasn't that exciting, and I think that was a mistake, because I think Scott told me that, and I think he was told by somebody, don't expect too much. I will not say who that person is, but they liked the game, and the person that told us that ultimately. And so we tried it out, and we're like, wow, I really like this game. It's fun. And so I went, it was during the campaign, so I just backed it all. Thanks for the follow, Rubio Porua. Thanks for watching us today and following. Yeah, it's crazy how fast it dries. Too fast. Okay. But yeah, the coat is almost dry. Let's see how it looks there. Oh, I didn't finish the hands. That I know I didn't do. I didn't do the arms. I think I did one. Maybe I did this arm already. I don't know though. But I know I didn't do the other one. I don't think I did, because I didn't do the cane. I am excited about the new show. I don't varnish with my airbrush. As I said, I tried this out when I first got here. Bought this AK Interactive varnish. I was very excited to try it out. And it immediately, like within a minute or two, it was enough particulates in the air that I was like, eh. And of course, I should have been just doing it outside. I could probably do it outside, no problem. But I think they look good. I'm not going for show pieces. And I think ultimately, let's look at Falcon. He looks good. It's smooth. I don't even notice any brush strokes or anything. There was like some you could see maybe a tiny bit of brush strokes that way, but it's not really that visible. And it's, it's harder to clean varnish out of your airbrush than it is to clean paint. So, I mean, I have tons of airbrushes, so it's not like I literally have like 8 or 9 airbrushes total. I have the first airbrush my parents gave me when I was in pre-high school, and have taken care of it over all these years. And then I bought more since then. Went crazy at one point, making sure I had like various versions, you know, heavy, so I wouldn't have to change nozzles and stuff like that. So I had different series of airbrushes. My very first one was like a 100 or 150. Hey, thanks for the follow, Commissar JB. But yeah, I bought the different brands of airbrushes. As I said, I had a Badger 150, which I think it's a dual action airbrush. I really like it. I had well, I actually had the guy from Badger, who's very nice, but he's like, oh, the 150, you know, like they moved beyond it, but it's still a great airbrush for me. I've fixed it over the years. I've had parts that got squished, like I dropped it, and the front nozzle part got bent, so I bought a new piece, which you could buy. I don't know how easy it is to buy the pieces, but they used to have them at Michael's. They actually had some of the parts available in Michael's. I don't see them anymore. As a matter of fact, I think the last time it was Michael's, they only carried Iwata, which I have one Iwata airbrush. Okay, so that's almost the last one. Let's do Okoye. The Colossus one is your favorite? I haven't seen that one yet. Thanks, Wingser. Yeah, and when the Goblin, I'm sorry, I missed your message on there. Yeah, the Green Goblin, it turned out great. It's not that hard to do. For me, it's especially a challenge here in Southern California because the paints dry so quickly. So wet blending has always been tough. The way I get around it is use airbrush thinner from Vallejo, and I also use what is it called? Retarder. Slows the dry time down. So if I'm using standard acrylic paints, that's the way I can do a better job of blending because generally they just dry too quickly. I find I can do a pretty, I don't mess with the chemistry other than putting in the contrast paint or the contrast medium. I don't mess with the chemistry of the contrast paints because I don't know really what it's like if you were to airbrush them or something like that, because people use them to airbrush. I just want them to work like contrast paints, so I'm not trying to make it a glaze or a shade. Tried to do kind of the smoky eye thing on this one. It came out okay. But yeah, I have some friends that won't brush on varnish, and I'm just, I go, it's really not that big of a deal, and it really depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to do a showpiece, I can imagine you definitely want to airbrush it, but then again, I'm a little worried about like fogging up or anything like that, so I feel more comfortable brushing it on. Plus, I have a pretty easy, quick setup to go airbrush, but it's always more work than just brushing. I mean, I will always varnish. I will always undercoat with an airbrush if I can, because I prefer it and I like the results. But I did, as I said, I did that Jurassic World one. It was some dinosaur from Jurassic World 3, or Jurassic Park 3, and I dry brushed the whole undercoat, and it looked great. It's in water, so like there's a scene, I guess, I kind of recall it from the movie, where they're in a cage or something, and there's a dinosaur attacking, and they're sinking in the water or something like that. And it kind of gave it like the wave, that Japanese print quality to it, which I really liked. And it's different than the others, but I'm like, it doesn't bother me. It looks cool on its own, and they were all in the game. We had them all together, and it didn't stick out or anything. It was just a different look, slightly different look. guess they announced the other day or yesterday that they're going to do another Tron, which is pretty funny. Like, it'll be 14 years after the last one, and it's not the same people involved, and people are frustrated that Daft Punk isn't doing the music, which I like that soundtrack too, but they're broken up. They're not going to probably do it. But yeah, I like using the handles so that you just don't get your skin, the oils from your skin on the paints. So yeah, this was one coat of the Gore-Grunter fur, I think, maybe slightly thinned out to do the cape or whatever, the cloak here, and it looks good. I was very happy. At first I was like, oh, I'm not sure this is going to be nice. It ends up looking a little bit like Sandman as far as because of the sculpting style, and I ended up being happy with the Sandman one. So I think on Sandman I actually did some of the little highlights like I showed on the hair, on the folds of the fabric. You know, it's not fabric on Sandman, but let's see here. I have Sandman right here. Let's see what I did. So yeah, see, I did a little bit of streaks of, wow, it's so much bigger. To give it a little bit of surface difference, since it was kind of smooth, and it would help sort of conceal. You can see here, it was earlier on. I probably could have done a bit to like smooth that out. Of course, it's sand, who knows, but he turned out cool. I do some gloss. I mostly do it on like glass elements, sometimes metallic elements, but we'll see here. I was talking about it earlier where that I might put it on something like the gold metallic armor that she has, like on her gauntlets and shoulder pads and things like that. But it's not crazy. I don't know. It varies on each project what I'm working on, what I might do. I'm trying to be semi-consistent through all the Marvel United. As I said, I ended up doing Ultron entirely in metallic. I was trying to do a contrast equivalent, contrast paint equivalent of like a non-metallic metal, which I'm only okay at. And I wasn't happy with it. I'm like, forget it. I'm just going to do metallic. I'm going to already, like, within 10 minis starting, change my game, because I really wanted to try to just use contrast paints. But here's the deal. I want people to paint their minis, and guess what? Painting with metallic is a quick way to do stuff, and I think metallic paints are great. I am not a snob about that. I think they look really fantastic, and they're worth using. They're not a distraction at all. Gosh, the top is almost dry, and it's taking that much time to get to the bottom. I do not know what is going on with these little stalagmites kind of poking up here, but I sort of didn't like the picture. I don't generally do too much color on the base. I leave it to the miniature itself. But I thought I'd do a little bit of color. Now, I did a bunch of color on MODOK's base, but I thought that would look weird if you have this jet, the thrust blasting out, and it would go to gray there. Although it might be neat stylistically. So you can see the curve is, the curl on the tip is getting strong here. And that's because I'm poking it in. So if you have different brushes and use them for specific tasks, it won't be as destructive as on the things that you're trying to use for details and stuff like that. Wow, she looks great. Okay. I painted Falcon second here, I think, so he's about ready to do the base, the last bit of the base here. Lots of varnishing on this one, I guess, so ultimately that is my project on this one. Let's do Kingpin. He's probably pretty dry. He is dry enough. Okay, well, it's getting close to when I should stop. I want to call my mom tonight, see how she's doing. But I need to clean this brush a little bit better. I'm going to actually work a little bit on Modoc before I stop. I spent a good more time on Modoc than I probably on any of them because of the the mouth. I spent a good amount of time on the mouth. Good amount of time on the thrust stuff here, and it turned out pretty good. But what I want to do is do some shading on the platform here. I'm going to use, wow, I really need to clean the brush. So this is, it's caking up. So the best way to clean, it's very different. Like you can rinse. Oh, here's the little poster tack. I use a brush cleaner, the Masters. It works pretty good, but you need it to pull out the stuff out of the brush. Now, this is a brush that I'm using to do more things like a varnish or something like that, or maybe doing some black priming. But you have to clean it, and this stuff, this is, you can tell I'm almost through this. This has been years and years and years of using this one. I do have a new tub of it ready to go for the next batch, but I feel this does a really good job, and it helps condition the bristles too. It's especially good with actual sable. You leave a little bit of the soap in the brush and it will help snap back any kind of curl that you've done. So the way it works is when you're done, you rinse it off, but you leave a little bit of soap in it and you bring it to a point and then let it dry. And it does a pretty good job. It's not the greatest. It doesn't completely resuscitate the brushes, but so what I'll do is I'll just pull it to a point. It's a little wet. But then you definitely need to rinse it when you go back to paint with it again. So you can see it's a little tired on the end, and it's got that curve hook, so, which is a bummer. Now you can use the hook to your advantage sometime to reach in to places. So I'm done with the varnish. Put this aside. Put the lid back on this. And I probably should do a little bit better job on it, but on cleaning that brush. But the reality is it was mostly just the varnish it dries kind of quickly, and it coats the bristles, and you really do need to clean it to get that out of there. You need, Robert, you should, hey, thanks Casey. Robert, you should try. It's not that hard. I particularly I'm really an advocate for using these contrast paints. I think you can do a great job, and airbrushing is not that bad. It's much cheaper to get into nowadays, and like I said, there's that one airbrush kit that has a rechargeable compressor that hooks to, the one I saw from Micromark is this airbrush. I think this is red instead of, this bit here, knurled part is red instead of gold. But it's the same, they had the same little top parts, like a larger, because this is a cup that has a lid, which is great, so you don't spill it too easily. The one thing I don't like about this brush is this here. But I just have to get used to it. It's different. You can't, like, one of the things you can do to help clean your airbrush while you're working and pull a color out of the main chamber is you cover the nozzle, and it will backflow into the cup, and it'll bubble out. Then you spill the contents of the cup out, put some more clean water in, and do that. And this is, I've stabbed myself like 3 times with this already, because basically what I have to do is take this off and then push this down and then put my finger over it, and it will bubble back. Or you take some sort of a rag or something on this, and maybe, or a towel, paper towel, and it might work as well. But it's kind of frustrating with that nozzle. I don't think I have another one sitting out here. It has a standard ring that's easier to cover up and then get it to backflow, bubble back into the main body. But anyway, the one that has that, it's still a good airbrush. It does a great job, especially for the money. And with that little air compressor, it's pretty great. Like, to me, let me put it this way. You buy that airbrush for even at $109, let's say, from Micromark, but you can get them cheaper from Amazon. Each can of this is $20. This will go a long time, but it is, I think it's more than $20. These are expensive. Standard, it's not even Citadel. It's all like spray cans are quite a bit expensive. So a few of those, and you will have saved, you'll spend what you would pay on an airbrush. And with this one with the little compressor, it's like just self-contained. You just need to, best bet is to do it outside, do it on a tray. I use the GW Citadel. They have a rack. It's like a gun, like a handle with this bunch of tines that you loop, as you can see here. This is the rubber bands that are on each side, and I just push it between those rubber bands, and then I spray them. But I think ultimately you're going to save some money. You're not dealing with as noxious as stuff as canned paints, and you get a little bit more control out of it. Now, that's got to make sure you're enjoying what you're doing. So I feel like, additionally, you just initially paint in pan, paint in black, and then do the dry brushed highlighting. So focusing on the top. Just keep working on it, put a little bit more paint on it, dry it all off. It's amazing how much paint you have to waste to make it work. Boy, you can see it's in there. I didn't do a very good job on the last cleaning. Now, these only have a certain amount of life. You can't really clean them. They don't take to wet. They're not designed to be washed, although I do wash them. I just don't, I make sure there's not a lot of paint on it, and then I get it wet and on it like a towel, and I keep cleaning it off. But you can do that method, see if you're enjoying what you do, and then consider buying an airbrush. It's not... yeah, Patriot 105. So I have a lot. Hey, Lupita, how you doing? I think they're great. I have all, and as a matter of fact, you could use one of those little compressors with that. I have so many. I think I have a 105, Patriot 105 Casey. I have so many airbrushes. I think they're flipped around so I could actually open it up. So underneath here, I have. So here's this is my first airbrush. This actually had a plastic back handle. This is a 150, not Patriot. Doesn't even have an engraving on it. Then I bought, I think this was maybe one of my second ones. This is another, this is a 200, no, not 200. This might be a 100. It's a side feed cup. This is gravity feed. I actually changed the trigger on this one a while back. But this, I've had this for 40 years probably. Seems about right. Maybe not quite 40. Long time. And then Badger actually has these sales every year for their anniversary. And they're not too expensive. Yeah, this is Extreme Patriot 105. I don't know if that's the one you're talking about, Casey. But this is a nice one too. I've used it once. Just, you know, I wanted to try when they had the sale, I was like, you know what, I'm going to buy a few of these and just try them all, the different ones. Here's another one, Renegade. They're all kind of like variations on the theme. These are all Badger. I have many more. Here's a Spirit. I have no idea what that's a side feed one that you can change the side of the cup. Interesting one. I mean, I have more. Here's another Badger 100L that has a larger cup. That's an integrated cup. I mean, I don't know. I think they're good. I think they do a good job. This is a good airbrush I've used a couple times, Sotar. These are kind of expensive. I got these for like $55. I think their 55th anniversary is coming soon. They'll be like $55. And you know, they're not hard to clean. If you just care for them a little bit, you'll be fine. I don't have my Iwata in here for some reason. Here's a Badger 155 Anthem. I mean, I have a lot of airbrushes. Over the years, I bought them, and plus, for a while there, I was like, oh, let me try this one out. Let me try this one out. It's a little bit much. You really don't need more than one run airbrush ultimately, but I wanted to have different needle sizes and stuff like that so that I could experiment with the flow. And I find that I end up just using, I'm not a airbrush artist, although when I was in high school and college, I did airbrush art. I was the airbrush guy. I was always helping people in high school airbrush their backgrounds and stuff. And you know, I experimented with a little bit with that stuff, but I haven't gone crazy. So let's see here. Once a year and then prime a whole bunch. Yeah, that's totally I am 100% with you. I just feel like, so the other airbrush which I don't have here that I use all the time for priming is a $20 airbrush from Harbor Freight. They are, I think, getting rid of that airbrush, so it's like in closeout. I mean, I paid $20. I think I used a coupon. I use that to prime as well, the minis. And that airbrush is a complete rip-off of the Badger ones. It's not exactly the same because the parts aren't interchangeable, but it is very much the same. They don't use the same needle bearings, which are made out of Teflon. They use, needle bearings are probably Teflon, but the other bearings on the head and everything are rubber, and those will probably get blown out if you use too much alcohol or anything like that. But they're great. I mean, I'm a big Badger fan. I'm not a snob about all that. I like that Iwata one that I have. The nice thing about using the Badger is they all have a smaller port for your air. These the standard is like this size. And there's nothing really wrong with it, but it's a little bulkier than the Badger ones. And you saw that I have the quick release on that one. I do have some quick release stuff to actually switch, but I find that I don't actually switch them as much as I thought I might. I haven't done, like I said, I haven't done any art, so I don't know what that would be like, but it could be, you know, be something you might want to do. But I love them. And as I said, it's not that expensive ultimately when you consider how much the cans of spray paint are. I saw that Monument has airbrushes made by Grex. Grex airbrushes look nice. I've never bought one. I actually use the quick release stuff I have is from Grex. And you know, those are nice airbrushes. They're in the $200 range though. They're not cheap. And then Harder Steenbeck. I've never bought one. I used one in Germany. Those are nice. They're awfully expensive, and I don't feel I mean, if you're doing like detail work as a true airbrush artist, that is not me, or like a great miniature painter, then you might want to do stuff like that, but I don't do that. Yeah, dangerous. Fires and everything else. I agree. Believe me, there's one paint I wish I could get from Germany when we were painting these. I was working on earlier this summer. I was working on these. Actually, earlier in the fall, I was working on these Gaslands vehicles, and this paint here is, what is the brand called? Not Rust-Oleum. I don't remember. Duplicolor. And it's not the same as Duplicolor in the United States. It might be the same company, but they don't sell them. This is an amazing paint, and I would love to be able to get it to the United States. But I did one here as well that I airbrushed. I don't know where it's at. Oh, it's one of these. So yeah, I just airbrushed this brown and then worked on it. But you know, this one just it really looks great. The rest stuff looks fantastic, and when you pull off, I use latex to you put it on. You paint the brown, then you put the paint the latex on it. It's a frisket mask. You put that on there, and then you paint it. And I just did this all with brush. You just paint the main coat of the pink on it. Then you peel off all the rust, so you have these rust panels. The panels are getting rust exposed, and then you just go back and then paint the color on top of that to give it this kind of weird, you know, Road Warrior kind of looks going on. I really love doing these. We want to do these on the show too. Aaron's really excited about it. We just have not gotten to do it. I bought too many Hot Wheels. Hey, it is 8 o'clock. That is call my mom time, but I'll give her a little bit of time. But yeah, it's worth doing it, especially if you think you're going to get into it. You can do a lot of stuff with the paints, and there's more uses for the airbrush than just that. So I'm going to try to use this. I may be using this as just straight without any contrast medium in it. I've never used this color. This is one of the new yellows. This one is called Iron Jaws Yellow. So it's obviously some orc color, warband. I think I remember, I think PC and changed the paint color. Yes, that happens, and that's bad news. But I know that's another reason too to focus on things like Warhammer Underworlds, where you're painting less minis. I got purple all over the place here. I'm cleaning it up a bit. So then you're not really, and you know, you should paint them in like together in phases. Wow, this is not going to be easy. Let me see here. Although it'll build up. Actually, you can already kind of see it. I just want to give it some shading difference. I'm not patient enough as I'm trying to get through so many of these to do the true build up. I'll probably do a little bit. So I'm kind of just doing little patches of it so that it has like reflections or something going on. But yeah, I think airbrushes are great. You know, you really probably should always wear a mask. I don't necessarily wear one outside, especially if I'm only using an acrylic, but it's all terrible. You don't want to breathe it out. You don't want to breathe it in. I'm touching his head, which is a bad idea because it could wear through the paint. It is definitely delicate. Let me look at the mini MODOK, see what he looks like here. But yeah, I'll probably be done with him pretty soon. Do I have a phone? I do have a phone. But I also like just using the. I mean, it's fun to come up with your own paint schemes. I mean, I've done it before, but I just feel like it's worth just going for it And wow, what is that from? Yeah, I should be looking at the Kickstarter. I should be looking at images. I just feel it's easier to just go that, especially when you have a lot of them to paint. Oh yeah, here's the painted version of it. It's, I mean, you can see I'm doing stuff similarly. They did a really nice job, but my guy doesn't look too bad. And he was done probably a lot. Now, the guy that's painting this is probably fantastic and goes quickly, but the guy or lady, but not me. But it looks cool. So let's see here. So I think all of the top of the platform is like this color. So I'm just going to do that, not worry about it. Give it a different shade. I mean, you can really go in there and do all kinds of shading, but you could see like this is, it was not as much paint, so it actually has a shading change between these panels. So I feel you can do a pretty great job without having to go too crazy just by using the undercoat. It kind of looks like this color though, so I'm basically doing this stuff and it sort of looks like the grayer version of the I did here with the straight yellow. It does really look like, now they went in and just did some highlights, which, you know, ultimately that's probably quicker. But you can see I'm doing okay here. It's not too bad. A little bit overboard here on the splotchiness here on the back. You do use the Monument airbrush term? That's great. I have not tried any of the Grex ones. They look great. I especially would like a pistol one. But ultimately my biggest problem is no matter whether I use a top a gravity feed or a siphon, I tend to spill the paint out. I get too carried away in tilting the airbrush. I'm doing everything sitting. I do have behind me a little airbrush booth that my mom bought me that I actually wanted for Christmas last year that I want to integrate and start using, because it'd be nice to use it and just jump on it and do some stuff instead of having to go set everything up. And in that case, that's part of like why that little airbrush, the little rechargeable compressor seems interesting for me. And I was watching a video that was surprised at the quality of them. They said they were shocked at how smooth it was. I don't remember who it was. It was a really great video because they actually showed it and how it was working. And I would like to see, I mean, I don't want to spend another, I mean, as you saw, I bought a lot of airbrushes. I don't really need more stuff, but I have more than one compressor too. I have a little Iwata compressor that my mom bought me a long time ago. And I have a Harbor Freight one that's actually pretty nice. And it's very quiet, so it could be used indoors, which is the reason why I bought it. But it's a little large. So we'll see. I watched a video, Barbarous Rex, I think, on YouTube, where he did a new spray booth that actually has a waterfall in the background to help reduce overspray. I mean, he said he puts a filter on top of the exhaust, and he says unless you're using something with a lot of fumes, you don't have a problem with it. And you know, acrylic, he said you probably don't even need to put any kind of filter on the last part of it, which would be cool. I'm a little nervous, and I don't need another one. I mean, I haven't even used this one. I actually had it for more than a year now, and I really want to use it. I was excited to get it. I just haven't got it set up properly. That already looks better. It's a little less insane with the yellow. Hey, thanks, Casey Pearson. Thank you so much for that support. I think you're the first person who's ever done that for us on YouTube. I really appreciate it. We will continue to do the paint streams. I'm enjoying them, and they're fun, and I love encouraging others to do the same. I think it's a great hobby. If it weren't for my friends 20 years ago that got me into Games Workshop, I wouldn't be doing it. I love painting minis. It's super fun, and it's pleasant. You know, it's a great way to relax. Oh, let's call my mom thing again, but I'm going to keep pausing. Go a little bit further and see if I can be done with this one. But yeah, I could always, I mean, I could be one of those people that reviews stuff and look at them all. I would love to see them all. I don't need any more of this stuff. I really don't have room for it all. I do have a tiny bit more room inside the case I have as a paint tackle box, essentially, for my airbrushes. But yeah, I think I really encourage people to give it a go. Start with something that's not, heck, paint. The recommendation I always hear is paint your army figures. You know, get some low-budget army figures and paint them up and see how that, you know, learn about it. I find I have more fun focusing on something that I'm eager to use, and I definitely want to keep. We want to do more with this. I would really actually like to do another game night, and Scott would like us to do one as well. We've just done so much Marvel stuff. We're actually talking about doing another Marvel Champions, because I bought the Guardians of the Galaxy stuff recently. And then GameGenic sent us the mats. I said, hey, we might be doing another episode of Champions. Would you send us the sleeves, the art sleeves, and the mats? The downer is the mats are not as exciting. I was talking to them at Spiel, and they were like, yeah, we can't do every... Too many SKUs, so they're not doing all that stuff. There you go. That looks pretty darn good. It is a little bright. It is not necessarily a color scheme I would go for, but it is what they have in the thing. And I mean, I liked MODOK. I don't remember everything about what was going on with that. As far as the look of it, but I'm sad they canceled that show because I love Patton Oswalt and it was fun, goofy thing. We didn't actually watch it because we didn't get Hulu till last year, maybe. I think they had that. I know that's what it was. They had the Black Friday special where it was like basically $12 for a year of it. So we watched it, that and some other stuff that we hadn't seen. Fantastic. Well, there you go. That looks cool. It'll be better when I paint the edge of the base too. The interesting thing, which I don't necessarily do, so I go back and forth on it. I did gray here on the edge. Something sticking there. And it looks cool. But what they did on the Mini for this one is they actually painted black up to the edge. And I think that made it look really neat with the orange. So I'm probably going to do that for this one. Actually, no, I don't have any black paint out. I'll save it for the next time. I will be streaming again. Let me switch cameras. I'll be streaming again next Tuesday morning, 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, so that's 1:30 Eastern Time. And then we will be away for a week. We're going to Dallas for Scott's birthday and some work. And then we'll be back streaming regular game night live 2 weeks from today. No, what is today? Is today Thursday? Yes. 2 weeks from today at this time, so 5:30 Pacific Standard Time. And it'd be great to hopefully can see you. I hope that some people do some projects and tell me what you're working on. You really should. It's fun. It's not that hard. And you know, you can, I think Nick Murphy was saying that they bought Marvel United for like $9 on Amazon. $9. You can get 9 fantastic minis and just give it a go. And here's the other thing. You can always strip those paints. You can always strip them and do them again. These plastics are a little bit softer than like the newer versions of their plastics. This Sentinel actually snapped in shipment. His arm is like way out there, so I actually pin viced it on a stream. You know, drilled the holes with a little handheld drill, and then put a paper clip in there and super glued it, and now it's pretty solid. But this plastic's more rigid than the older, so it may not clean as easily. One of the things you use is LA's Totally Awesome. I might as well show you. I have it behind me. I've not used it yet. It's supposed to be great at stripping. You do need to make sure that you clean it completely off when you go to repaint, but you can just keep trying. So this is like $1 at the, I think this is at the 99-cent store. $1 for a big bottle, and it'll do a pretty great job stripping it off. You just got to make sure you clean it completely off, because it will, the paint will come off too easily and it'll be a problem. So you definitely have to clean that up. Hey, you know what? I showed you that stream. I've showed you 2 things. Showed the Sentinel. Here you go. There's the bottle of that. And here's the Sentinel. Here's the mount. I keep forgetting I'm on the thing. So, yeah, it's, you know, you can do a lot. This would actually clean pretty easily. The other ones are a little softer. I actually had one of the bases, even though it's not that soft, but one of the bases distorted coming off of the Citadel thing and popped off. I'm like, oof. So I'm kind of intrigued to see how these will go with the newer plastic that Simon is using. But yeah, for $10 though, you can get the first one and give it a go. I mean, it might not be that cheap right now. Let me actually look real quick before I get off. Let's find out. I bought for like $25. I bought the main game and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse or whatever. And oops, I'm on the German Amazon. It cost me $24. So it was the main game, Spider-Man, Spider-Verse, and a Doctor Strange mini. That's, I said I had more than, I only have 2 of those. They were $25. It's totally worth it. I think the game's really fun. And so it's $15.98 right now. That's great. This is the one I paid 20. So this will be on sale sometimes. This is the one I bought for $20-some. Was the main game plus Spider-Man and the Doctor Strange, which is killer, right? That's quite a few minis right there. That's about 15 or something like that, maybe 16. And you just get in there and try it out. There actually a lot more of the stuff is turning up. The Asgard one is available. A bunch of stuff is available on Miniature Market. But I keep showing things on camera. Here, let me switch back. I'm sorry. Forgetting. So yeah, there was $15.98. Wrong thing. $15.98 for that one. And then the main box is $38. It's still not a bad deal, but if you wait, you might save $9 to $10. And then there's the Asgard. Wow, there's the Deadpool one, $29. Blue Team. So I wonder if these are actually being sold by Amazon. Yeah, see, Spider-Verse right there is $30-some, $30 just for that. And if you buy this set here, you get that plus the little Doctor Strange miniature too. Anyway, let's switch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the other room. I'll just leave it in the down shot here, and I'm going to try to raid. You'll be able to hear me. Let me do the down shot. It won't be starting soon, but it's close enough. You can see some minis. I'll leave that visible. There you go. Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Casey. Hey, thanks for saying I'm the greatest of all time. I don't know about that, but it's fun, and I really appreciate you all watching, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope we get started painting. It's so much fun. Let's go see who we can raid real quick. The Brothers Murph are just wrapping up, probably. If they're streaming, I know they weren't feeling well on Tuesday, so they may be out. Let's see. I'm in the control room here. Go to are we logged in? We are logged in. So let me go to the creator dashboard. Here we go. Kind of slow. Okay, I bet Bonzinator is going to be the one person that I know. Channels we follow. Nothing. Oh, there we go. It's Bonzinator. So let's join. Oh, wait, Board Game Blitz. They might be doing a puzzle, but that's Ambi, and Ambi's wonderful. She's only got 6 people watching, so if you guys would like to join her, please click on through and say hello for me. Hey, it looks like she's actually playing some sort of game. So say hello for me, everybody, and have a great weekend. Take care. Hopefully see you next week, and if not, see you when we return after the 31st. Bye, everybody. It'll be a couple seconds before we raid here. We've got 3 people. All right, people, join in. And if you're on YouTube, thank you so much, and hope to see you again soon. Bye, everybody.